Hey everybody, welcome back to the Home Buyer Hotspot. Today we're diving into something every home buyer thinks they understand until inspection day hits. And trust me, this is the part of the process that can either save you thousands of dollars or cost you thousands of dollars, depending on who you hire and what they find. Joining me today is Vince Cardone, a seasoned residential home inspector who's seen everything from harmless quirks to full-on deal breakers hiding behind perfectly staged homes. But before you put $1 of earnest money down, before you fall in love with all of those paint colors and fancy light fixtures, there are things in a home that can make or break your purchase. And Vince is going to help us spot the red flags before they become your expensive surprises. Before Vince introduces himself, like, comment, and ring that bell to subscribe if you want to hear more content like this. Welcome, Vince. How are you today?
Very good, Jennifer. Thank you for having me today.
Absolutely. So before we get into this, how can my viewers contact you if they need a home inspection?
Sure. My name is Vince Cardone. I'm with Residential Inspection. Best way is cell or text 386-532-4677. You can also visit my website, www.residentialinspectionfla.com. All of our information is there, as well as a contact page. Add a note, and I'll respond to you within 24 hours.
Excellent. Thank you. That's great ways to get a hold of you. So how did you get into the home inspection business? Did you graduate high school and think I want to be a home inspector?
Yeah, well, just like all the other life choices we had, this wasn't the first one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I understand that.
yeah. So I've been in the home improvement trade over 25 years, I think since 2000 actually,
Okay.
and we were doing a lot of different development and so forth. And then I actually transitioned over in the early 2010s time level into working with banks as a contractor, and we were doing repairs, preservation work, REO work, and we were setting up the homes for mortgage insurance, and we were doing property preservation as well. And with that came inspections from our lenders, that each lender had different requirements. So we got into the inspection side organically while we were maintaining and rehabbing these properties. And then when I moved to Florida, I transitioned solely into home inspections. Altogether, I had about 15 total in the inspection and business, and just about to start my 8th full year in Florida as a home inspector.
Excellent. So you've seen it all. I've worked with
Oh, yeah.
REOs, which for those of you who don't know what that is, that's real estate owned. When somebody forecloses on a home and the bank then takes possession of it, they call those REOs. And typically those houses are not in good repair. So you have probably seen a lot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, everything you can imagine, everything from where there was everything from violent crimes to everything is stored in houses piled high, roof to floor, ceiling to floor,
Wow. Wow. I
and
can't even
and all the
imagine.
damages, and all the damages associated with it too. I've fallen through floors, holes in roofs where a skylight should be, and everything in
Wow.
between. Yeah.
Wow. That is amazing. So what's the most misunderstood things that buyers believe about inspections?
Well, it's actually twofold. One, a lot of people and realtors actually think that all inspectors are the same, and they're not. Just like any other profession, there's different qualifications and there's different education levels, and there's also different types of ancillary services that inspectors do. So you may or may not be certified in certain areas. So there's a grouping that everybody's the same, and with that also comes different levels of pricing because of the experiences or certifications. But you want to be able to make sure that the person that you hire reflects the services that you want and anticipate. So that's one big thing. And then the other thing is that not every home requires an inspection. Now, whether it's me as an inspector, obviously I want the phone call, but organically, every home should have an inspection, whether it's a home, a condo, a townhome, new or old. There is a misunderstanding that because, especially on new home, that an inspection may not be required. We strongly suggest inspections done on all buildings because you never know what you're going to see or expect, because just because it's new doesn't mean that it's right.
I agree with that. I have a friend who actually purchased a new home and she was paying cash. And so she didn't really feel like she needed an inspection on the home. And so
Right.
she just did the final walkthrough with them. But then she discovered in the final walkthrough that one of the faucets was broken. It must have just came that way. I'm sure the builder didn't intentionally do that, but the faucet was broken. They did eventually come back and fix it, but it took them weeks. Whereas had she have had an inspection, she could have asked for those things to be done prior to closing, and then she would have moved into the house and everything would have been functioning.
It's amazing how people react when the money is on one side of the table or the other, right? So when you do an inspection before a closing, reaction times are a lot faster, and because things want to get done, and also to satisfy the client. So if you can identify things in this particular example before you close, you get ahead of some of the issues that are going to happen after the fact.
I agree. So, in your opinion, what makes a great inspector versus someone who's just checking off boxes and going through the list?
So the key to every trade is education, right? Education and knowledge. And the thing that people look at an inspector and they expect that knowledge is expected when traditionally it may not be. And that's where years of education. Now, all professions require some kind of CEs and it certified their credit hours that we have to maintain our licenses. But then there's different levels of inspectors that want to do things that are above and beyond to protect themselves from being complacent or to further educate because times are always evolving. So I strongly believe that education and their background and our certifications are a big thing as far as separating one inspector from the other. In our situation, all of our certifications and our CEs are clearly posted on our website. So when clients shop for different inspectors, you can clearly see who has what, who does what, and who's certified to complete things. And it goes back to where the knowledge, and this way they're able to give the knowledge and the client the quality inspection that they're looking for.
I would agree with that. We hired an inspector once years ago to look at a property. And the guy came in literally like my question with some little check boxes. He kind of walked around, looked, he tested a few outlets, turned on some water. Like he didn't do anything. And my husband looked at me, he's like, I could have done all that.
And I hear that, believe you me, I hear that a lot. I see that a lot from past experiences. And the people who have done it in the past, they look at things and, for lack of a through experience, they know what to look for and they start qualifying or disqualifying people based on their experience.
Yeah, yeah. So, what are the top 5 major issues that you see that buyers should absolutely never ignore? Because obviously, inspection reports, your guys' job is to come up with stuff that's wrong with the house. And sometimes there's a lot of little stuff, like little things that really don't matter. But what are the 5 things that people really should not ignore if it comes up in their inspection report?
So a couple of things, especially in Florida with all the stucco that we have, minor stucco cracks look like something that's small, but can lead to a lot of damage. And if you, because
Right,
it's all about water intrusion
right.
and stucco and concrete, so one thing about concrete is that it is cracked or it's going to crack, right? That's what concrete is.
Yes.
And you have to repair minor cracks. Same with stucco. Those two are probably the two most important, with stucco probably the most important part because it can lead to additional deterioration and it can lead to cracks and moisture intrusion into the house. And that can lead to thousands upon thousands of dollars. And then, of course, that can lead to mold and microbial damage. So those two things are the most important. I believe those are two of the most important things. Then the other thing I also look into that no inspector can inspect your sewer line without running a sewer camera. So
Right.
just because things are flowing well during an inspection doesn't mean there may be an underlying problem, especially on a vacant home, because no inspector is going to be there to test all the plumbing and all the leaking and the drain lines unless you put stress on the home or do a sewer scope inspection. So we look at those as being a key item that you should not overlook. And then the other thing we look at also is that there's that gut feeling when something doesn't seem right, it isn't right. And traditionally, when you're walking through a house, you need to add that to your list of questions. If it's important to you and it's something that caught your eye, you need to relay that message over to the inspector.
That's actually really good advice because I think a lot of people just are really unsure altogether. And so they kind of let the realtor and the inspector figure things out. And then the client plays a little bit of a back seat until they get that report. And then when they get the report and they're like, oh, but I noticed XYZ. Did he say anything about that? And then everybody's
Right.
scrambling, looking through the report to see if the inspector, mentioned had any information to give. So that's really good advice for them to come with questions if they've got questions about the house prior to the inspection.
Yeah.
So are there signs of a bad home even before scheduling that inspection? Like I have my idea of what would turn me around, but
Yeah. So the biggest thing is that when you see a house and you're finding out that the house looks pretty and looks great, completely redone, and you don't see any permits anywhere, you see that there's no link of anything being done through trade people. When you walk into a house and you see things that don't seem right, that's an indicator that, like a flip house is most notorious for that, because they bring in a bunch of handyman or unqualified people to do the work. For me as an inspector, when I see a house and I'm looking at everything looks great on pictures, and all of a sudden you do a search on the property and you have a house that's 20, 30, 40 years old and no permits, but yet it looks brand new, those are indicators that there's a flip involved or some other work. And that's where things can be we look at things a little bit differently at that point based on the age of the house, on what might or might not have been done the right way.
yeah, FHA actually makes a flipped home to have to season for 6 months prior to doing financing. And my guess is that the reason behind that is because you're 100% correct. There's a lot of people that do the handyman fix. They make everything on the surface look super pretty, but then the functioning of things might not work the way that you would hope.
As intended. Yeah, yeah, we see that a lot. Those are the big tools. And then it goes, also you look at the house and you see how the house is positioned. If you go into a house and you see that windows and doors aren't opening or closing the right way, you're seeing daylight in areas that daylight shouldn't be. These are things
Yeah,
that you can
something
see,
flag.
right? That you have some shifting and some shifting, and those are things like settling. But again, those are things that you can see from without doing an inspection. It raises questions, and you want to make sure that is if you proceed with that, to make sure you ask those questions, because that's going to be the critical time for you to make that decision.
I would agree. So what's something that you've seen people think was minor, but ended up being a huge hidden repair?
So here's what happens, especially in Florida, that most of the houses are on slab, and you see cracks in tile and cracks in grout and so forth. When you start seeing tile cracks, that's telling you that the slab has a crack. It's an indicator of a cracked slab. And what happens with a cracked slab, if it's not poured the right way or cured the right way, it allows for settlement. And then when the cracks happen in tile and grout, there's different severity of that. And I'll give you a recent example. There was cracks that went through 3 different rooms of the house. It went from the living room, the bedroom, to the bathroom, and it
That
carries
would
underneath
freak
the
me out.
walls. And the thing, you look at it, okay, fine. But then you get the offset tile. And when you have an offset tile, now that's an indicator of movement. So what
Hmm.
looks like, and I'll give you this example because it just happened recently, that it was identified as, quote, no big deal. We look at it, we put marbles down, the marbles start taking off in steel balls that we have. They take off in 2 different directions. And then we had a foundation person go there, and in this particular case, the repair was between $56,000 and $70,000.
So stupid question because I've never repaired a foundation. What do they do to do that? Pull up all the flooring? What happens?
So what happens is that they do a soil test first, looking for soil and soil movement. These are a couple of different tests that they do, and they're
Okay.
looking for shifting in soil, and they're looking for what caused that to happen. And a lot of times what happened is that when the houses were being built, especially during times of high pressure or times that the slabs weren't cured the right way. So when they don't cure the right way, it leads to cracks or and so forth. So what happens is that they do a soil test, they do different tests as far as the perimeter of the foundation. Depending on remediation, they do what they call Healy coils, where they dig underneath the house, and depending on the deprivation of soil, and they create a footing X amount of inches or feet down below. And they basically put like a lip or a cup that looks like an L, and it actually grips the side of their house. and then they jack it up and they lift it and prevent it from moving any additional times.
Wow. That is very interesting. I know my
Yeah,
husband's father was a home builder in the early 70s in California, 70s, 80s. And
yeah,
so we drive around sometimes. My husband's like, they're not curing that concrete right.
yeah. It happens.
I'm
Yeah,
like, babe, just let it be.
yeah,
I'm like, what are you
yeah.
going to do? Hunt down the people that buy it?
But with anything, everything has a cause and effect. If it's not
Yeah.
installed the right way or cured the right way, it has a cause and effect.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's one thing that homeowners maybe might point out to you or a realtor might point out to you that they think is a really scary thing, but it actually is a pretty easy fix?
So this is what I tell all my clients. Everything is repairable. You need three things: time, effort, and money, right? And it comes down ultimately to that person, and it comes down to that individual, what they know, what they don't know, what they're willing to do or not willing to do. And I know it's a vague answer, but it's the reality, right? Because every repair affects people differently. And they look at things differently based on what their overall scheme is. Like the most common thing that we see, like in Florida, because people, they don't open their windows or open their doors all the time. So doors and windows get hung up, or they get the windows don't open or close, or they don't close the right way, or they shift. Those are balancer and window repairs. These are things that can be done for a couple of $100 a window, and those problems go away. But
So not
when
a
you're
big
looking
deal.
into a room, not a big deal. But when you walk
Yeah.
into a room, you see a window that's cockeyed. You're like, what's going on? And just the fact that the balancers are damaged. I mean,
Yeah.
it's small things, but most of the time, maintenance takes care of a lot of the issues.
Right. Right. Yeah. My husband and I always buy fixer upper houses because we've got the skills to
Yeah,
fix them up. So a lot of people walk into the houses that we buy and they're like, oh, nightmare home.
yeah,
And we're like,
yeah.
no, it's going to be beautiful. Just wait.
It'll be great. Yeah, yeah.
So, how often do you run into the deal breaker inspection? Like, all of the realtors obviously don't want to hear this is a terrible house. You know what I'm saying? When their clients are there, how often do you really run into that this house really, you should not buy it?
So, as an inspector, and I'm speaking for myself, it is not my job to say buy the house or don't buy the house.
Okay.
My job is to put together the condition of the property the day that I was there, and
Okay.
ultimately the buyer is going to make the decision of whether to move forward or not. But there are some cases where you look at things and they know that the house isn't right for them, but they're waiting for the inspection to happen to make that decision for them. And we
Right. To
see that a lot.
confirm what they kind of already know.
Yeah, they know, but they don't know until we get in there. It only confirms what their beliefs are. But when we go in there and I do an inspection, it confirms what they already had. Their left side of the brain had told their right side of the brain, and then the right side of the brain, when they get the report, says, "You see, left side, we told you
Yeah.
not to do this."
Right.
Um, and
Right.
the report identifies that, but it's never my position to say walk away, or unless something's really catastrophic. But we never tell our clients, don't buy this house. It's not for me
Okay.
to judge.
Okay, that's good to know. I always tell people, during the big crazy boom where everybody was waiving inspections just to buy a
Yeah,
house. And that had me so freaked out because I really believe, well, A, most home buyers don't have skills to fix things themselves, so they have to hire somebody. So that's an additional expense. And then B, if you're buying this house and you don't even have the skills yourself to do your own kind of mini inspections that you know what you're getting
right,
into, it's very dangerous. I think I actually had a client in 2002 that bid over asking, like, I want to say $35,000. It didn't appraise. So they wanted the house so bad. They came with all this extra cash. They waived the inspection. They did all these things to get this house because they had to have this house. And I remember at the time thinking, and I told them, are you sure you don't want to do an inspection? I know you waived the inspection, but you can still do an inspection just for your own knowledge so that you know. And they're like, no, 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 this house, it's beautiful. Look at the pictures online, blah, blah, blah. Well, after they closed, they called and they were like, Jennifer, we should have listened to you because had we have had an inspection, we would not have bought this house, because then they lived in it and they found all the things that did not work. that then they're responsible for. So I think that the inspection step of home buying is super important.
Yeah, and to your point, and to your point, you fast forward now 5 years later, where organically people start to move 3 to 5 years out. The ones that
Correct.
waived the inspections, they're all now that they're selling those houses, all those things that they could have identified 5 years ago are now popping up in their new inspection on the buyer side as they're trying to sell their house.
Correct. I
Yeah.
100% agree with that. So what should buyers bring or look for during an inspection?
So I tell all our clients, well, and I'm one of those inspectors where if the house is vacant, I welcome my clients being there because I want them to absorb the house and appreciate the house. When I do a pre-inspection interview or conversation, I want to ask the questions and identify any of the concerns that they have. And then I tell them to go to my website. It has all the details of what to expect, what we include, which will trigger more questions. And when they come to the inspection, if we had not yet spoken, I tell them to give me the list or make me aware of additional concerns or questions you have. So when I'm doing the inspection, I'm identifying and acknowledging their concerns or questions. I at least want to give them the answer to what they're looking for. I do tell my clients that I have disciplines and a process so I don't miss anything. So if I'm in the living room, don't expect me to go to the garage and look at something in the garage.
Right, that you see.
Follow me, walk me around, and then when I get there, we'll take a look at what your questions are.
Right. So is it important for buyers to attend an inspection? Like I know I bought one house sight unseen
Yeah,
once in my
uh,
life.
yeah,
And
it
but
happens a lot.
I had been in the community before. I knew it, and I wanted that specific property that was on the intercoastal down south. And so I was at the airport getting ready to fly to Washington State to visit family, and I saw it pop up on my phone. I called my realtor.
Yeah,
And I was like, hey, we want to buy that house now. And he was
yeah,
like, okay, let me run numbers.
okay.
Let me see what the value is. And so we were literally gone for 2 weeks. So we allowed the realtor to handle, we trusted him. We had bought and sold with him quite a few times, but allowed him to handle the inspection. There was anything major. He sent us the report. We were good.
Yeah. Yeah, we encourage them coming. I encourage them. Not every company's the same. I can only speak for myself, but I encourage my clients to come to the inspection. But there's a couple of caveats also, and I make my buyers aware. If the house is occupied or other people are there, they need to understand that I'm there for them. So I don't openly discuss anything at the inspection unless they approve it. And also, there's awkward moments, right? When you have a buyer and seller in the same house,
Yes.
right? And it's awkward enough when I'm there with the seller, but then you add the buyer in there, sometimes it makes it uncomfortable. So
Yeah.
it comes down to transaction by transaction. But at the very, very least, you come towards the end of the inspection and we at least have an overview on the sidewalk or in a driveway, just so you have an understanding. And then the details will be in the report. But at least this way, you have an overview of what I did for you during the inspection.
Right. So what do you wish that every buyer understood during this step?
So the biggest thing with that a lot of people, so keep in mind that, we're there for, let's say on a 2,000 square foot house, we're there for 3.5 hours, right? So in our inspection, and because we're doing the insurance work and we're doing the insurance inspection and the
Right.
detail, it comes into the details. And sometimes the expectation is that we're going to find every little nuance with the house, which we're not.
No.
And because our inspections are non-evasive, so everything we do is a visual inspection, and we have to have access to it. So if we go into a bedroom as an example, and you have your furniture and you have your bedroom and your closets are stacked with furniture, and I can't get to every outlet, I can't get to all your windows. Anything that's accessible, we will inspect, test, and operate. But if you don't have accessibility, or there's things that are hidden behind walls or things that are blocked, we can't do anything about that. It's not accessible, and we can't see behind walls. As much
Perfect.
power as I think I have, I'm also a thermographer with infrared, but that's based on reflections, and we don't know what's happening after the fact or what's
Right.
happened, that things that aren't seen.
So what is the infrared looking to detect, water or?
So as a thermographer,
Mhm.
everything has a reflection, whether it's a wall, your skin,
Okay.
glass, TVs, etc. So everything reflects, has different emissivity, which is a reflection. And what we're looking for is anomalies, and we're looking for things that, why do we have this reflection and this image here where I don't have it there? And then that gives me a direction of what to look for, whether it's air loss or a water leak or intrusion of some sort, because it could also be different things. And as an example, if you see like a red glare on a wall, it may be that you're missing insulation, but it also may be on a wood framed home that there may be a hole and bees have gotten behind it and created a nest. And the issue is
That
heat.
would be bad.
It would be bad.
Yes.
So infrared helps me identify anomalies within a structure.
That's really cool that you can do that. That's really cool,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
So
It's a really cool tool.
what do you think the biggest mistake buyers make after they receive that inspection report? What do you think
You
the
ready
biggest?
for this?
Yeah,
And
tell
here's
me.
the biggest thing. They don't read the report.
No. So
They
they pay all
do
that
not
money and
read
they
the
don't read
report.
the report?
They don't read the report. So what
Ugh.
they do is that they'll look at the summary, they'll look at the big items, and they'll forget the rest of the report. And then and then all of a sudden, down the road, hey, I had a problem with X, and did you read the report? And here's the page number. And here, well, no, I didn't read it. And that's probably the biggest thing that we get. They do not read the report.
I did not expect you to say that.
Yeah, they don't. They don't.
Well, but you know what? I guess that shouldn't surprise me because I send emails to my buyers. And if I don't
Yep.
bullet point, or if I make that email too long with too much information, they literally read like the first few sentences and then
Yep.
that's it.
Yep.
Then that's it.
Yeah, and in some cases we'll give them a summary, and then they're satisfied with the summary. But that's on them. We always tell our clients, you
Yeah.
have to read the report. The details are in the report.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree with that. So I'm assuming that you also offer pre-listing appointments, right? In order to go and
We
inspect
do.
the property before somebody lists it. So what should sellers fix before listing their homes in order to avoid surprises? What's kind of your recommendation on the seller side?
Sure. So yeah, we strongly suggest pre-list inspections, and the pre-list inspection gets ahead of the issues that I'm going to find as a buyer inspector. Most of the time, sellers, like my house, I know what I have to repair in my house. You know what you have to do at your house. Well, if you know that there are things that have to be repaired, repair them before the inspector comes in there. And what happens is that people they'll make the repair like before the house goes on the market, but they've lived with the problem for X amount of years, right?
Me?
And
I
right,
don't know how many
me
times I've
too,
done that.
right?
I'm like,
So
why? Why do I not do this for myself?
exactly right, but you're doing it to prep the house for a listing. So
Mm-hmm.
if you have knowledge of a repair, make the repair. If you have knowledge of an issue and you can't make the repair, disclose it. Make everybody aware so it doesn't come back during the inspection or during negotiations that can ultimately cost you more money and or a canceled contract because it wasn't disclosed or it wasn't an issue that could have been identified up front.
I've seen that so many times that buyers will check the I don't know, I don't know, I don't know,
Yeah.
but they really do know in that
Correct.
seller's disclosure. And matter of fact, I had a transaction close, 2 months ago, and the people were buying from out of state and they got into the house and it had been marked on the seller's disclosure that nothing has ever flooded. And so they had a heavy rain, like night 3 or 4 in the house, and the whole back patio, the whole thing flooded and came into the house. And it was like this whole thing. And the buyer was like, you can't tell me that this never happened.
Right. Exactly right. It's a shame. It's a shame. And sometimes they hide it very, very well. But there's ways to find out if a house was flooded or not through an inspection. Not 100% foolproof, but you can tell. But it's when you identify things that we all know have happened before.
Okay.
That's where the issues happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So how has the market changed what buyers expect from inspections? Have you seen like a shifting? You've been in the industry for a few years. Has there been a shift in the expectation?
So I believe it has, where people are actually have more time right now to absorb the houses and look at the houses more.
Yes.
And
Yes.
for those who do read the reports, they actually take that information to heart and ask the questions and the follow-up. So at that point, they're able to make a more informed decision. Whereas a few years ago, like you said, they were waiving inspections or they were making decisions last minute or going off the seat of their pants and not making, the thought process wasn't thorough. In today's economy, people are looking at things a little bit more. They're doing more due diligence. they're investigating the houses more, and they're taking the information that's given to them and really really absorbing it and making them their decision a little bit more thorough and detailed.
I would agree with that. So I've owned houses that were as old as the early 1800s, and then everything in between to new houses. So, in your opinion, do you think that houses are being built in worse conditions than they were way back in the 1800s? What's kind of your opinion as far as are homes getting better or are they getting worse when it comes to condition and the actual building process?
And that's a real open-ended question
I
because the
know it
house, like
is.
I had a house that was 1881, right? That house will outlive us all in another 100 years.
Yeah, the craftsmanship is amazing in those older
You
houses.
can't,
Yeah,
and the character and so forth, you can't compete. There's nothing, and it'll last us forever.
agreed.
So what happens with a lot of the builders right now, it comes down to the builders. And keep in mind, and people say, well, the house is built to code, and that's great. But the word for code just means it's the absolute worst that someone
Minimum.
should be able to do.
Right, the
It's well,
minimum.
code's the minimum, right? It's the absolute minimum. So it comes down to that builder, and it comes down to what level price point that builder is building that house to be at. So there's different levels of builds, but they're all built to code, and they're more importantly, they're built to the environment that their house was built in. As an example, there's houses in our area of Central Florida that cannot be built in Miami-Dade County because their standards of building are different than they are here.
Yes, like the wood frame houses. I was shocked when I saw wood frame houses being built here. I was like, "What? We're in Florida.
Yeah.
You can't have no wood frame."
Well,
Because
my
I
and
live
my
down.
house is right
Yeah.
down south. It's all block.
Yes.
It's all block home. And the moment you go in Volusia County, like my house is a brick face wood frame home, but it's built to the same code as a block home. But then it becomes psychological on that client whether they want block or wood frame because it comes down to choice. But you go to Jacksonville and they're all wood frame and no block homes because the environment changes. So it comes down to the builder, the price point, the model home, just like when you buy a car. You have an L, an ST, and you have
Yes.
an LT package, right? It's all about the packages. But the core build is going to be the same. It depends on what they tie into that particular model to make it a better home, more quality, quieter, and detailed home.
Right. I agree. So, what advice would you give those first-time home buyers in today's market?
So do your due diligence, partner up with a really strong realtor that's going to help you out as much as they possibly can, but don't rely just on them for information.
Agreed.
Same with the inspectors, do your own homework. Never trust any one person 100%. You want to make sure that you do your own work. And our business on the inspection side, we strongly suggest we tell our buyers, whether it's first time or experienced buyers, your due diligence, investigate the person you're willing to hire, interview them,
Yes.
understand what they do, their capabilities, because not
Hmm.
everybody does the same stuff. Ask
No,
the
they don't.
questions. And this
Hmm.
way, as you move down that road, you know
Hmm.
that the team around you is fully there to support you.
I would agree with that. I have buyers that want to buy new construction and they come to me and they're like, oh, I went into this model home and they said, if I'll use their realtor, their lender, their title, their everything, I don't need an inspection. I can get
Yeah.
this deal. And I'm like, okay, that
Yeah.
sounds fabulous. Fabulous. Sounds fabulous.
Right.
But all those people are working for the builder. I'm like, they're working for the guy who's selling you the house, who is looking to get a paycheck. And that's who they work for. Who's going to work for you?
Correct.
Who's working for you. So I'm a huge advocate for people having a team around them. And I understand the builders. I mean, I'm a mortgage lender. And when the builder can offer 4.9% on an interest rate because they're desperate to get rid of houses, I get why people would use their lender. I can
Sure.
offer 6, so I
Yeah.
totally get it. But
Yeah.
I still tell them, you need people in your corner. Use your own realtor at the very least and get
Yep.
an inspection.
A
You
hundred
have
percent
to.
right. 100% right. And then again, I'm there on behalf of my client, and I'm there on my responsibility is to the client and the client only. And we want to make sure that when we go in there, the client also understands that they hired us, that we're knowledgeable in all aspects of that, because not every inspector does the same types of inspections that we do. So you want to make sure that when they hire that inspector in our world, that it covers all of the bases and all of the inspections that they want in detail.
I agree. I agree. So, Vince, thank you so very much for being here today. And you have given us so much helpful information. And everybody out there, home inspections truly are one of the most important parts of the buying process. If you skip it or you don't understand it, you can end up with big headaches later. So, thank you, Vince, for giving buyers and sellers the clarity that they really need. And to everyone who's listening, if you want to feel confident about the home you're buying, lean into the inspection process. Ask questions, learn from the pros, call my buddy Vince. And as always, don't forget, like, subscribe, and share this episode with anyone thinking about buying or selling. And thanks for tuning in. So, Vince, give them your information one more time to know how to contact you.
Sure. Thank you so much. And thank you again for having me today. And if when you talk to Jennifer about a loan, if you have any questions whatsoever, call or text me, whether you use me or not. If you have a question and you're looking for the answer, let me know how I can help you. Let Jennifer know. She'll reach out to me and we'll help you out any way we can.
100%.
To reach me, to reach me, residential inspection, 386-532-4677. You can call or text that number. You can visit my website at residentialinspectionfla.com. On our website has all of our details, our licenses, insurances, certifications. We want to make sure that your home buying process is smooth and easy and comfortable. We want you to enjoy the experience.
Excellent. And to feel confident about buying that house. Really, that's how I look at inspectors. You're giving people confidence to move forward and to know what they're getting in a house. So I appreciate you, Vince, and thank you so much for coming on Homebuyer Hotspot. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.